Yo people, my wife and I often talk about how much we love living in Europe and how we really have no desire to go back and live in the US. And people often ask us a lot of questions about this. Well, if you clicked on this video, you're probably interested in some of that culture clash and how different is life in the US and in Europe. Well, my name is Rex. My wife and I are career teachers. I taught high school mathematics and we moved to Europe in 2018. This channel is all about what is it like to live abroad. Specifically here, I'm interested in talking about the fact that my wife and I have this amazing opportunity to go home and visit the United States for Christmas and New Year's. And particularly I want to share what are the things that I'm so excited about in returning home. When I considered this, I came up with 5 categories of things that I'm really excited about. Now, to be clear, returning to the US really doesn't feel like returning home. In fact, we're not returning to places that are home. After I moved, my parents moved from my home of Seattle down to Arizona. So now when I go back to the US, I visit them in Phoenix. It's definitely not my home. It's not my culture. It's not my geography. So in some ways, it does feel like coming home. And in some ways, it really doesn't. And this trip in particular is going to be really different because my wife and I are going somewhere we never expected to go before. My wife's family decided for Christmas, they want to do a cruise in the Caribbean. So because of that, the cruise leaves from Miami and we're going to spend a week in Orlando doing the theme parks and then cruise the Caribbean. Honestly, I never thought I'd go to Florida, and I'm pretty surprised how excited I am about it. After that, I have an awesome opportunity to visit a childhood friend who moved down to Florida, and then I'm gonna go home and spend some time with my parents and my sister in Phoenix. I'm hoping to share with you a ton of those stories as they come up in the next weeks. But as an expat of the US, let's get to the 5 big reasons that I'm super excited to be going home. And the first one is just the low-hanging fruit. It's super obvious. It's all about the relationships. In the theme parks and on the cruise, we're gonna be with my wife's family, and I love them. It's gonna be awesome. I'm gonna get to go see my childhood buddy Nate, and it's super cool. I haven't seen him in way too long. And then of course my parents, my sister and brother-in-law, and my nieces and nephews in Phoenix. It is by far the hardest part of the expat life is moving away from that family and those close friend relationships, and you really miss out on so much. Honestly, in this trip, on top of spending a bunch of time with my mom and dad, I'm really excited to spend some time with my nieces and nephews. My sister moved to Arizona when I was in Seattle when they were pretty young, and I haven't really gotten to know them. And that right there is by far the hardest part about expat living. The second major reason I'm super excited about going home is something that I personally believe you really can't understand unless you've lived in both of these places. I often tell Americans, unless you've lived in Europe, you really have no idea about how dense civilization is and how that really drives very real differences in the way people live and act. On the same note, I would tell Europeans, unless you've lived in the United States, you have no idea what it means to have open spaces. Now I know I've lived in Latvia, now I live in Serbia, and there are a lot of open spaces, like it feels that way, but it pales in comparison to the US. And this is really true on every different measure of scale. What a European thinks of as a national park is like a tiny little corner of an American national park. And what a European thinks of as driving from town to town or village to village, city to city, is almost like going from suburb to suburb in the US. And there's something really different about the way it feels. I'm really excited for these big wide open spaces. But it's also true on a lot of different levels. Like our place here in Serbia is huge, but it is nothing compared to the open spaces within people's homes in the US. And so, I don't know, I'm kind of excited just to have my own personal bubble where I have space to live and be myself. When I come back, I'm really excited to get into the rural spaces of Serbia and see a lot more of this country. And I think it's really cool that Serbians often tell me, like, you gotta get out of the city and go do these things. I feel like it's the exact same advice that I give people I know who are going to the United States. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to New York, LA, or Miami, whatever. And I'm like, dude, you gotta just get out of the city, go to the national parks, go to the little towns, go see the real America. The third thing I'm super excited for is convenience and food. Now, some things are way more expensive in the United States, for example, going out to eat, but so many things are free. I mean, free public toilets, free water in every restaurant or any place you go. I mean, this almost sounds stupid to an American, but to a European, it's like, really? You sit down and they just bring you ice water for free? I know some people wouldn't like this, but I am so excited, specifically going from Serbia to the United States, that you cannot smoke indoors. As someone who's not from here, it's probably the thing I dislike the most about living in Serbia is smoking indoors. That like you're sitting in a restaurant and someone in the next table over could just light up a cigar. It's cool if that's your thing, but it is not mine. I'm excited to have the convenience of like stores are always open and whatever specific product you want to buy, you can find it, just easy. For example, one of the things I've been looking for since we moved to Serbia is a voltage converter so that I can plug my guitar amp into the wall. And I've been looking for it now for 4 months. I have like emails that I've sent out and I haven't heard back whether people are gonna be able to get it. I guarantee in the US, I could probably find it today. And then I know this kind of feels a little ridiculous to say, but the convenience of having a washer and dryer sounds wonderful. I know in Europe you're used to the clothes rack, so you put out the clothes horse and hang the things, and in the winter they never really dry. Well, I can even go another level, because for a long time I'm gonna be staying with my parents, and I'm willing to bet my mom won't let me do any laundry at all. And I'm a little sad to throw that on her plate, but I'm also very thankful for the convenience. And the food. I threw this in with convenience because yeah, a lot of American foods are just very convenient. It's easy to get a lot of quality foods. In Arizona specifically, I'm super excited to hunt down some great tacos and authentic Mexican food and some great barbecue. I mean, no one does barbecue like the US. Occasionally you can find places in Europe that replicate it and they do okay, but there's just nothing like a really good barbecue brisket or a rack of ribs. The fourth thing I am super excited for in going home is church culture. You know, when we first moved to Latvia, my wife and I were like super hopeful and we tried out a whole bunch of churches and we were looking around. We just never found a church that we really fell in with. And here in Serbia, there's one church that we've gone to that I'm like, you know, I could do this. And we've kind of gone back and forth about it, but it's just a little inconvenient, so we haven't gone back yet. And that to me is frustrating. It's so cool in the US that you have so many really great churches, and it really does breed a different culture. And I know the stereotype, and it's probably very fair, that Americans are so like smiley and happy, and it comes across as just being super shallow. But personally, I just find that often not to be the case. It's like people are happy and smiley, and they'll straight up invite you to their homes for dinner. So I'm super excited about going to church and just experiencing that church culture. And the fifth, the last big category of things that I'm really excited about in the US, and this feels really shallow and trivial for me to say, but I am excited about it. I'm excited for the stores and the things. Now, to be clear, I'm not a shopper and I don't really care about things. But if there's something I want that thing. I want specifically that thing. And in Europe, it can be so hard to find the thing that I want. Well, in the US, it's easy. Stores are always open. They're all huge. There's a wealth of everything you could possibly want to buy. If I want to buy a new flannel, I can go to a store and it's cheap and it's exactly what I want, has the pattern I want and the colors I want. They might even have like stuff to go with it that all matches. In the US, we just make shopping easy in a way that in Europe, it's so difficult. And if you can't find it in a store, you just get it on Amazon. It's another thing that maybe it's different in Germany and the UK, but in Latvia we had Amazon. Still, when you order it, it takes like a week to come. And that's fine, I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm definitely excited for the convenience. As an example of the type of things I'm talking about, I'm really into barefoot shoes. And one thing I already ordered is like, I have these barefoot sandals from a company called Zero Shoes that I absolutely love. And my barefoot sandals blew out in October. Well, in the EU, it would be super easy to order them. In Serbia, I mean, I think I could order them, but the shipping and everything, it's just nothing is easy. Well, I ordered the exact specific sandals that I want, and they're already shipped and they're already at my parents' place waiting for me. Well, if you were able to visit the US, what would you be looking forward to? Let me know down in the comments. And if you're American and you're thinking about taking a trip outside the US, you'd probably have to give up some of those things. Which things on this list are you not okay with giving away? To be clear, my wife and I love living in Europe. If you're interested in what it would look like to live in Serbia, maybe you want to check out the playlist on the left here. Ciao, ciao.